All right, what's going on, Notre Dame fans? I'm Tyler Horka. That's Jack Sobel. We are with blueandgold.com, Blue and Gold Illustrated, here at Stanford Stadium in the Bay Area, Palo Alto, California, where Notre Dame literally just ran all over the Stanford Cardinal, 56-23 in the regular season finale for 2023. It's a 9-3 Fighting Irish football team. That's one game better than last season. So that's progress. That's tangible progress for Notre Dame. But more importantly, just the way that they ended this regular season, Jack. It was a slow start. You wrote about that in your game story at blueandgold.com. But in the end, firing on all cylinders. And the better team, the more physical team, really took it to the other guys on this field here today.
Absolutely, yeah. It was, quite frankly, Tyler, an unserious first half. Notre Dame turned the ball over 3 times, very nearly turned the ball over a 4th time. Jabron Payne at the goal line at the end of the first half, overturned upon video review. I thought even if he wasn't in the end zone, he was down. I think we disagreed on that a little bit. Regardless, the ball broke the plane. Yeah. It was a touchdown. Sam Hartman threw a terrible interception, honestly, off his back foot. Late on an outbreaking route. That's a recipe for disaster. Hartman flew too close to the sun a little bit on his 25-yard run. Yep. He tried to make an in cut right about here, somewhere in this area. Yep. But he fumbled. That was another turnover. Jadarian Price, a fumble on a kickoff, and a couple defensive breakdowns too. It was everything, defensive penalties as well. Everything going wrong for Notre Dame. But when they weren't turning the ball over, you could tell like they were running the ball at will, and it was just a matter of time before they got it together and break the game open, and they did.
I think I posted on social media that Notre Dame was doing all of the little stupid things that lose you a football game, but this is a Stanford team that just is not going to take advantage of those opportunities like, say, a Clemson would and did against Notre Dame this year. Louisville took advantage of all those Sam Hartman interceptions in that game. What was the final for turnovers? Was it 4 or 5? Because I guess the Jadarian Price one doesn't count because it's a kickoff. It's a little skewed, too, because Steve Angeli came in through one pass in this game, and that was an interception. So it was turnovers galore for Notre Dame, but you never really got the sense, even when Stanford was leading this game, what was it, 16-14? Were they leading after that as well, 21 to?
No, 16-14.
That was the last time that they led. They led early. They took the lead at the very beginning of the game on a field goal. So, yeah, this was a game that Notre Dame actually trailed in a couple of times, but you look at the ending scoreline, and it was that. It was a 33-point trouncing for the Fighting Irish, and Audric Estime had a huge hand in that. I guess he had a couple legs in that because, holy cow, 25 carries, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns. Those are all career highs. He leaves this game as Notre Dame's single-season rushing touchdowns leader. Did he get up to 18? Was that what he finished with? Or was it? Okay, so 18, that's a record. He almost had these single-game rushing record. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter, so he could have had that if he did. He wanted to. This wasn't the game, the time, or the place for that, though. He belonged on that bench. But here's the thing, in the fourth quarter, here's the thing. That might have been the last time that we saw him in a Notre Dame uniform, Jack. We talked to him after the game. He wasn't going to talk about that necessarily, but do you feel that this was the way that he went out with that game?
I mean, it could have been. Logic dictates he's a running back. Running back shelf lives tend to be short. If a running back gets hurt in their final game and it affects them into the pre-draft process, that really affects the draft stock of, again, a running back in particular. So you never know. Audric Estime could want to run it back one more time. What I think we both do know is that, based on a lot of factors, his season this year, his skill set, he's a complete running back. He's an NFL caliber player, and it's a weak running back class relative to recent years. It makes all the sense in the world for Audric Estime to enter the NFL draft in 2024.
Yeah, it's just too reminiscent of when Kyron Williams literally played his last college game on this field. Didn't run for 238 yards 2 years ago, but you kind of felt, hey, he's a running back. He's going to get drafted. Now's the time to go after the junior year. But let's talk about what he did here tonight as they turned the lights off on us at Stanford Stadium. Hope you guys could still see us because we still got some things to talk about. He was running hard. He was running fast from the very start, breaking tackles. You look at the end numbers. How many rushing yards did Notre Dame have, Jack? It was up.
Notre Dame wound up with 381 rushing yards on 48 carries. I can't do the math in my head that quickly, but in terms of yards per carry, it is. We can get the boys in the lab to confirm this. A lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. And Audric Estime led that charge, but you saw everyone come in. I mean, Sam Hartman, like you said, he was running the ball a little bit. And, the fumble, he was probably like, yeah, I should probably just let Audric Estime do this, but let's talk about this, Jack. and I just mentioned this to you before we started this video, this is a Stanford team that allowed the second most passing yards per game in the country. Only one team, South Florida, was worse in terms of passing yards allowed per game. There was a point in this game where Notre Dame said, you know what, we're just going to line up and win this thing on the ground. And I thought that was really impressive, even against an inferior foe like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you're running as well as Notre Dame did, there's really no need to pass, especially when your passing game is turning the ball over like it was today. I think it was the right call for Notre Dame to ride Estime. Gibran Payne had the touchdown. Jeremiah Love had a couple of really nice runs on the ground. It was the right move, and it paid off today.
Yeah, and you mentioned Gibran Payne getting that touchdown. I thought that was kind of a turning point in this thing. You wrote about at blueandgold.com how silly that first quarter was. If Notre Dame does turn the ball over there, what is it, a 5-point game, 4-point game, 5-point game at halftime? As soon as it got to 12, I was like, yeah, this thing could be a rout in the second half. And it was. And Notre Dame wins running away, and Sam Hartman only throws 14 passes. So obviously, let's talk about the other side of the ball, because the defense obviously has a lot to do in a game like this where you completely shut down the opponent. Wasn't really a masterclass. You talked about those big plays in the first half especially, but they really wore on Stanford offensively. And I think no better indication of what Stanford was offensively tonight than having to use 3 quarterbacks and saying, we're just going to throw all these guys out there and see what happens. What do you see from the defense, Notre Dame defense?
Yeah, look, this is a rebuilding Stanford team, and to the, like Marcus Freeman talked about after the game, to the Stanford coaching staff's credit, like they called a pretty good game at the start. You know, Stanford loves that quarterback power, and it just created a pile up on that first drive of the game. Went for almost 50 yards. They kind of got a running back matched up in a weird zone situation. Someone on Notre Dame blew a coverage, another 50-yard gain, and then that touchdown. Tiger Bachmeier, you might recognize the last name. Notre Dame was recruiting his brother at quarterback before Deuce Knight committed. Nice little fake reverse jet sweep. It was really sweet on their part. But Notre Dame's defense settled down. They were obviously the better team. The biggest mismatch is up front. I could check the stats to see how many sacks Notre Dame had. It's not on the sheet, but it was a good amount. They pressured Ashton Daniels, the starter, Justin Lamson, the backup slash kind of running quarterback savant. They pressured them all game and didn't really give them much.
Yeah, I thought Stanford had no answer for Notre Dame's linebacker blitzes. Yeah. J.D. Bertrand living in the backfield, Maris Leifau living in the backfield, and then Benjamin Morrison made a couple nice plays in the secondary. It was just what we've seen all along from this Notre Dame defense, just kind of wearing on an opponent, shutting them down in the end, even one as feeble as this Stanford team. But I will say, E.J. Smith, good player. Wide receiver, number 13, good player.
Alec Iamaner. And frankly, Ashton Daniels, the quarterback,
athletic.
He's got some zip on that arm. If Stanford can recruit a ton of offensive linemen, they lost I think it was 6 either starting or playing offensive linemen to the transfer portal. It is really hard to recover from that. And I think if they recruit well in the next couple of years, we could see the Stanford program get back to where it was in the 2010s.
Yeah, I guess next year is the last scheduled game between Notre Dame and Stanford, so that's interesting. We'll see how the ACC shakes things out and if this remains a staple game, because obviously it has been of late. But let's put Stanford Notre Dame tonight to rest and just kind of look ahead to the next month, 5 weeks for Notre Dame, Jack. Probably the Pop-Tarts Bowl or the ReliaQuest Bowl. I'm sorry, that's the one in Tampa. That would probably be against LSU, so that's intriguing. 10 wins? Does that matter to Notre Dame? I mean, now that this Stanford game is in the rear view and you have your 9 wins, can you confidently say, hey, let's look ahead to this bowl game. Let's finish with 10 wins?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Regardless of how much it actually matters to Notre Dame, they're sure as heck gonna tell the players and preach we want to get to 10 wins. That's how they're gonna motivate the guys for this bowl game. They won't have any trouble motivating them if it's against LSU, but if it's against anyone else, it's gonna be 10 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins. We want to finish the season strong, go into next season with some momentum. I think we're gonna hear that a lot from Marcus Freeman starting on Monday. We're gonna hear from him on Monday.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of housekeeping stuff on Monday from Marcus Freeman. Maybe some offensive coordinator talk, some Audric Estime talk, some Sam Hartman talk. Honestly, did Sam Hartman just play his last game? Because this is decision time for players like that. And Joe Alt could have played his last game in a Notre Dame uniform. It is that time to kind of start thinking about those things. But we will wrap up this video again by saying Notre Dame 56, Stanford 23. I didn't know if Notre Dame was going to score that many points, but I had a good feeling that they were going to win by as many points as they did, and that's what we just talked about here today. So, again, I'm Tyler Horka. That's Jack Sobel. Keep it here on this YouTube channel because, again, December, busy month for college football news, recruiting, transfer portal stuff, coaching carousel. What do we call it, Jack?
Silly season.
Silly season. It is silly season. This game here tonight, not so silly if you're a Notre Dame fan. It was a fun one, and I will say that these stands that we're staring at right now, Jack, empty right now. But holy cow, there were a lot of Notre Dame fans. They showed up, showed out, and saw Notre Dame improve to 9-3. So again, stick here on this YouTube channel throughout December. It's going to be a busy one. Tyler Horka, Jack Sobel.